All right, it is 6 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting to order at 6. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands.
All right, I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Settlemeyer.
Here.
Commissioner Fox.
Here.
Commissioner Riles.
Here.
Chair Robinson.
Here.
Commissioner LaGrasse.
Here.
Commissioner Winterode.
Here.
And Commissioner Ingman.
Here. All right. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our November 7th meeting? Yes. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Very good. Business from the public. All right. And nobody online?
Online.
Okay. If you are here for the hearing, that's coming up next. But if you have business from the public, go ahead and unmute yourself or turn on your camera. I'll take that as a no. All right. Next, we will move on to scheduled business. Next on tonight's agenda is a quasi-judicial public hearing regarding planning file HI-21-24, an application for the historic review of new construction for the construction of a 990 square foot garage. Have all commissioners received a copy of the agenda packet materials, and are you all familiar with them?
Yes.
Yes. I call to order this quasi-judicial public hearing at 6:02 p.m. If you wish to testify, there were 3 options available, which were described on the commission agenda. Do any members wish to declare a conflict of interest? I don't see anything. Do any members wish to report any ex parte contact? Do any members wish to report a site visit?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes. Yes, drove by today.
Rain?
Yeah, I've driven by.
Yes, driven by.
I've been by.
Okay, very good. And I as well. Do any members wish to abstain from participating in the proceedings? Does anyone wish to challenge the participation of any commission member in this hearing and decision? If attending virtually, please turn on your camera and raise your hand to be called upon. Or if attending by phone, please unmute yourself and state your name so you can be called upon. Okay, at this time, I call for a reading of the meeting procedures.
Good evening. For those wishing to testify, please be aware that you must raise an issue with enough detail to afford the commission and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue if you later want to raise that issue on appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the approval standards staff will describe or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code which you believe to apply to the decision. If additional documents or evidence are provided by any party, the commission may allow a continuance or leave the record open to allow the parties a reasonable opportunity to respond. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with enough detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court.
At this time, I call for the staff report.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. For the record, Alyssa Schrems with the Planning Department. So before you today is HI 21-24, a historic review for use, or a typo, for new construction. So the application had the notice of public hearing, mailed out on November 13th. The property was posted on November 22nd, and the staff report was issued on the 27th. You should have received a bundle of comments today that all came in kind of in the last 2 days, so those were not addressed during the staff report. So this right here is the property at 606 6th Avenue Southeast. So the yard there on the left-hand side of the house is where they are proposing to put the garage. They did go through a replat to combine those two lots into one earlier this year that has been finalized. So if you looked at the location map, it might have looked a little funky. Our system's just catching up. So this is the design that the applicant is proposing. It is about 990 square feet in size, and the layout is on the bottom, kind of showing how it's going to be laid out. I did miss it the first time, but it is proposed to be set back 20 feet from the front property line, which is a requirement of our code whenever you have a vehicle entrance facing a road. So I did miss that, so I wanted to point that out because it was hard for me to find. So we are using the new construction review criteria in ADC 7.270 for within the Monteith and Hackelman districts. So the development maintains any unifying development patterns such as sidewalk and street tree location, setbacks, building coverage, and orientation. The structures of a similar size and scale of surrounding buildings and as much as possible reflects the craftsmanship of those buildings. And the building materials are reflective and complementary to other structures within the district. So you do have three options before you: approve the request as proposed, approve the request with conditions of approval, and deny the request. In the staff report, we did recommend approve the request with conditions of approval. However, if you choose to go that route, you will have to kind of decide if, based on the additional evidence that was submitted, if it's still compliant with all of our kind of compatibility standards that weren't addressed in the staff report. Does anybody have any questions at this time?
I do.
Yes.
Is there a residential density zoning for this other than just the Hackelman district?
No, there isn't. It's just the Hackelman. Typically we use the lot size, the minimum lot size as a way to establish density.
And what is that for this property?
For the Hackelman, it's 5,000 square feet. This lot was pre-existing, so when the house was first constructed, it would have been below the minimum lot size that we had, but we have provisions in our code to allow them to be developed.
And you've combined it with a lot next door, so now it's more than 5,000 square feet?
It's like a tidge more. Yeah, it's like barely squeaking in.
So just one residential unit would be allowed?
Yes, although our code does also allow for duplexes. That's a state law. We have to allow duplexes wherever we allow single units, and we also allow ADUs.
Okay, and those are allowed by right in this zone?
Correct. It's kind of across the board for our residential zones.
Okay.
Yep.
I just had one more thing about curb cuts.
Mhm.
Are the two garage door locations consistent with the city's curb cut policy on curb cuts? And will there be two curb cuts?
So I believe what they're going to have to do is we allow them to do one curb cut and then they can flare out the driveway to be larger. That's been the policy. So Public Works has a standard for the actual curb cut itself, but then there is no standard for once you're on the property.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any further questions for staff? I don't see any. We will now take testimony from the applicant. If the applicant is online, would the applicant please turn on your camera, unmute yourself, state your name, address, and make any comments that you have for the commission. Nothing to it? Okay. So we don't have any questions then. Do we have any public testimony on this matter in addition to what we have received today? Okay. Oh, yeah, if you are online, please turn on your camera and unmute yourself. If you wish to provide public testimony. Forgive me, I can't see anybody online, so, okay. All right, then we will skip rebuttal testimony. Does any staff member wish to respond? We can skip that. Any procedural questions from anyone at all at this time? All right, I declare this public hearing closed. Where am I here? What?
Hey, Barbara, I see that you're unmuted. Are you hoping to testify?
Yes.
Yes, my husband and I are here. We live in Florida,
Oh, okay.
and we live next door. I'm concerned that this is an extremely oversized garage for the property, and I'm more concerned that a business will pop up in this garage.
Understood. Do you have
There's been no garage there, and there's been people living next door for 12 years, 13 years. Now there's a monumental garage going up, 2-car. That's not a regular car garage. It's more like a business type garage that I'll be looking at out of my bedroom window.
Understood.
Hey, Barbara.
Thank you for your comments. Oh, maybe staff has a question for you, Barbara.
Just a procedural question. Could we get your address so that we can get you mailed a decision?
2700 Northwest 37th Street, Boca Raton, Florida 33434.
So you also live next door part-time, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Our daughter has the house on the other side.
Gotcha. And
640.
did we get Barbara's last name? Barbara,
Keene.
sorry, go ahead.
Aeene.
Are we all good, staff?
Yep.
Okay,
Thank
very
you.
good. Thank you, Barbara. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else popping up online? Okay, very good. I will backtrack a little bit and ask if staff has any, do you wish to respond to any of that testimony?
No response.
Okay. Well, I will declare this public hearing closed at 6:13 p.m. Does the commission wish to deliberate?
Yes.
Very good. Let's start over here, Richard.
Yes, as the comments that we received indicate, this is a really big garage. The projected garage is as big as or bigger than the house. And it does not appear to be a residential 2-car garage that it is purported to be. And I agree with most of the comments from both from the Friends of Historic Albany and from the nearby neighbors that this is out of scale. It's not set back as much as it should be. Good deal taller than it should be, and it does appear to me to be intended for a commercial space with a front. Essentially, it has a front door for a person to walk through, as well as two doors rather than one for vehicles of a very poor 11.5 feet tall vehicles. They're a lot bigger vehicles than I have. That's it. I am.
Mason?
Yeah, I agree that the size and scope of the building is inconsistent, I find, with the other buildings of the neighborhood. The garages, it is, I think, as big as or bigger than the main establishment that's there. I also concur that the setback, looking at other garages in the neighborhood, it seemed to me that they are behind the homes. This one seems to be pretty much on the same side as the home. There's just, I heard there's a 20-foot setback, but I don't agree that garages in themselves are ahistoric in the building, in the neighborhood. Currently, I'm on the fence. I'd like to hear what the rest of the commission thinks.
Cameron?
So I have a long list of issues with this particular application. When you look at 7.230, purpose of new construction, it says the purpose of reviewing the exterior design of new construction within a historic district is to ensure that new structures over 100 square feet are compatible with the character of that district. So when you look at what's compatible with the character of a district, you need to look at the historic structures within that district. There was one example of a 3-car garage in the application. That's not a historic structure. That was built in the 70s. It's not really relevant for seeing, comparing it to surrounding buildings if it's outside of the period of significance to use as a reference point. Looking at the code of 7.270 itself, the development maintains any unified development pattern such as sidewalk and street tree locations, setbacks, building coverage, and orientation to the street. When you look at the driveway to this, the width of this driveway itself does not fit with any underlying unifying development pattern. It's just way too big. It's way too wide. The building itself, as far as a unifying development pattern, you just don't see garages this big in the Hackelman Historic District. The lot coverage, originally this was a separate lot. It was just combined with the duplex lot, but it was originally a separate lot with a separate house on it back in the day during the period of significance. There's no unifying development pattern to look at where we can see a garage that basically takes up the coverage, the building coverage of an entire lot like this. The structures of similar size and scale surrounding buildings, and as much as possible reflects the craftsmanship of those buildings. Again, this garage is actually wider than the existing historic house. If you look at attachment C9, page 21, and that is not a similar size or scale of surrounding buildings to have the garage that's actually wider than the house. Not really anything to show much for craftsmanship here either. The other thing for similar size and scale is the size of the garage doors in front. Besides just the sheer mass of this building, which is completely out of scale for garage for the Hackelman District, you also have 2 large 12 by 12 garage doors, which is noted by the testimony tonight and in the testimony we received. This is the kind of garage for some kind of industry, not for a house. Certainly would not be typical of a garage with an automobile from the period of significance to have a door that's 12 foot wide, 12 foot high, not only just one of them, but 2 of them like that. And then building materials are reflective of and contemporary to the existing buildings within the district. We don't even have enough information there. We know a little bit about the trim and the siding. We don't have any information about the material of the doors. We don't have any pictures of the doors, what they look like. Supposedly they have some glass in them. Don't know anything about the entry door. So there's no information there to be able to make a decision on that. Again, just the total mass of this, not just the heights, but the widths, the square footage is just way out of scale for a garage for the Hackman district. So I'm going to be voting to deny it.
For my part, the first thing I will say is I'm going to break from the bulk of the testimony we received and from some of the other commissioners as far as the size of the building and the possible commercial intent. I think that is not necessarily, it's not a foregone conclusion to me, and I'm not necessarily as troubled by the raw physical size. However, I think it is important to note that Commissioner Settlemeyer is absolutely correct. The garages and subservient structures in this district that are large were built post the period of significance, but before the historic district was established. So we can't really, Cameron's 100% right, we can't reference those in order to justify the size of this garage. And also, I agree with you 100%. We once again find ourselves with an application where we don't have enough detail. Obviously, the siding is going to be hardy siding. If it was going to be smooth siding, that could be a possible condition. That is something we could work with, but we don't know what the trim out is going to be. There's just a very rudimentary sketch that shows minimal trim that would not be compatible with the district or the area. There's no windows, and maybe there's going to be some windows in the door, but again, we don't know what these doors are going to look like. There's no information on these doors. I can't make a decision on this without knowing what we're looking at. These doors are going to be the bulk of the street-facing facade of the building. So I feel like we're lacking some information again. I have concerns about curb cuts and things like that, but I have to set those aside because that's not necessarily within the commission's purview. However unfortunate they may be, in my opinion, it's not for us to decide. That's for current code to determine and establish. But I don't feel that there's enough description here. I don't want to be, I'm sure that there's people out there going, here he goes again. He doesn't have enough detail. However, we are here to decide these things based on the detail and the facts, and we don't have them.
There's a lot of things unusual about this. As Cameron mentioned, one of the things he didn't mention is that the lot, if we go by that, then the lot shouldn't be there because the lot's half the size of any other lot in the district. The lot is some weird leftover parcel. So you can, if you take a look at that, at this picture here, that's a standard lot. This is a piece of a lot. I mean, part of it, it looks weird because it fills up the whole lot because the lot's half the size of a normal lot. And however, the scale of the building, the size of the doors, the lack of detail is all very troubling. I'm not inclined to say that someone couldn't do something there, but I don't think I have enough information. And I just realized looking through this that I know the person involved here. And I didn't look at his name before. I have no contractual or money interest in this person. I just know him. But I feel like I don't have the information I need to make any kind of decision about it, given the sort of arbitrary nature of what we're looking at and the fact that the person isn't here to talk to us. I guess that's not a point either, but I tend to agree with everybody. However, I do see some mitigating circumstances in the fact that the lot is so small. Almost anything you put there, I mean, 30 by 30 is not a huge building, but it certainly is big for a carriage house or a small garage in anywhere in that district. I mean, Cameron, maybe you found someone somewhere that had a bigger garage than that, but I can't think of them. And so, yeah, I'm at a quandary what to do.
I appreciate all the commissioners' detail in their thought processes going towards this. My concern is that the applicant isn't even here to answer our questions, and I'm inclined not to discuss anything about it and just deny the request.
Well, I guess as an aside, I just want to say that my husband and I raised our 4 kids for many years in a 990 square foot house. So this is a huge structure for this district, and it doesn't fit, and I don't support it. And I agree with what Cameron said. And I just want to thank you, Cameron, for laying that all out the way you did, much better than I could have done. You hit all the areas, and maybe more information would help. I think like cutting the structure in half might help as well. I don't understand how you need, a 2-car garage is 400 square feet. This is more than double that, and it's being called a 2-car garage. It also has a person door. I mean, it's not what it's the intent is not what is being presented, in my opinion. It's not consistent with the words. So I am not in support of the project.
Any further deliberation from the commissioners?
Yeah, just playing off what Kathy said, it doesn't look like everything's on the up and up to me, but, I'm not here to cross-examine, all we can really do, it's not within our preview to decide what this person's thinking or what he might do with it. I think that would get us into a slippery slope and troubled territory. But what Cameron is saying is that, look, this is grossly out of scale for the neighborhood, and we don't have enough information to be able to discharge our duty to, I feel like for the first time in a long time, I don't know what to do. I don't know that I have enough information to make a decision.
I concur. I think that some things for me that would help moving forward is more detail about what do the barge boards look like? What are the sizes and the details of the trim out? What do the doors look like?
Anything.
What
Anything.
What does the person door look like? Is that going to be a modern 6 panel? Is it going to be a modern flush panel? Or is it going to be something else? So I don't feel I have anything.
I appreciate the impact on the neighbors and the fact that it's probably really intended for some other use, but I don't think that those figure into our thinking. I tend to land where Cameron does and say this is just so out of scale. Without more information or without some indication that there's some recognition that scale and detail matter in the neighborhood, I don't know.
And I think that although you are correct, and I sort of alluded to the fact that some of these concerns, although valid and real concerns that we received in the testimony and the input from the public, are not necessarily, they don't fall to us. We don't get to decide those things. There's still, obviously, size came up again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would seem that from the public testimony, the public also does not feel like the scale is appropriate.
And even looking at the examples provided by the applicant, other than the 1970 example, it appears that other ones are significantly smaller than the one proposed. Some of them are single-car garages.
Yeah, that's a good point. The evidence in the record, the actual photos, outside of the 1977 out of period triplex, all the other example garages are kind of what you would expect to find, and those are small, very small garages, very subservient to their houses. This isn't.
So I am open to more deliberation unless I hear a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion. I move to deny the application for new construction as detailed in planning file number HI 2124, based on the information provided in the staff report and public testimony, deliberation by the landmarks commissioners, during the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Oh, I see. Nope. Okay. I
I
just want to
wanna
make sure I'm following the right procedure.
I want to abstain.
Oh,
So I'm voting not to vote. I have to think about it because I didn't realize till halfway through this that I know the person. And I just got to think about what that means. So I'm just abstaining from making a decision.
After the,
do we need a
is
roll
that,
call
is that
vote?
appropriate to
Can I just
abstain at the
vote?
time of the vote?
Can I, well,
You can
I'm not
abstain at any
abstaining
time.
from the hearing. I just going to vote. Cameron, you've done it before. What do you call it when you just vote here, present or something?
You're just abstaining from voting.
Yeah.
Abstaining from the vote, not necessarily from this hearing. Because I don't have
And you
any.
should not have participated in the hearing.
I haven't decided that or not. I have no monetary relationship with this individual. I happen to know him. I know you. I know a lot of people in this town.
I think we can abstain from voting at any time.
Yeah, I just want to abstain from the vote.
So procedurally, in the future, you are supposed to abstain, and then we do the yay or nays.
I know.
But I understand that you didn't figure that out until halfway through. I don't think this creates a procedural issue that could be appealed. I think that it's basically rectified, so.
I mean, if you think I should, I can vote nay. I mean, I'll vote aye for the nay.
I think you can
I think we
abstain.
should go with the abstention. But procedurally, do we need a roll call vote? Let's have a roll call vote.
Settlemyre.
Aye.
Fox.
Aye.
Riles.
Abstain.
Robinson.
Aye.
LaGrasse.
Aye.
Winterode.
Aye.
And Ingman.
Aye.
So that's 6 yes and 1 abstain.
Okay, decisions of the Landmarks Commission may be appealed to the City Council within 10 days of the date the notice of decision is mailed. Business from the commission.
I would, oh, go ahead.
Staff passed out a one-page thoughts on scope of work for updating our historic surveys. The commissioners were talking at the last meeting about it and talking about different aspects of it. It just got me thinking, and I just wanted to capture some thoughts, maybe as a starting point. Just a few things to think about in terms of how we would go about doing new surveys or updating the surveys. I did go to National Register site and looked at recent updates to surveys that were done in the 80s. 2 or 3 of them, and very similar to kind of our circumstances where survey procedures have changed and more research is available and some properties have deteriorated. And so I kind of wanted to capture all of that was going on in some of those updates. So I just kind of, again, put together some thoughts for us to look at if we want to do that today or look at it and talk about it next month or what. I gave Alyssa like 15 minutes to look at this. So staff this isn't like a sign off from staff or anything. It's just a beginning point.
Sure. Alyssa, is that something you want to share now? Or do you want to prepare something and come back to us? How would you like to proceed?
I think it would be good to get feedback on kind of the ideas that Kathy got on paper. You should all have them. It's a piece of paper that looks like this, no photos. The top of it says ideas on a scope of work for updating the City of Albany's historic surveys.
Oh, that's from Kathy.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep, we got it printed off for her. And so basically just kind of a general feeling. Are these all the things we want to ask for? Are there priorities? Are there things we don't want? Kind of a general feel. So part of kind of getting a quote on what we're asking for is the people we are talking to understanding kind of what we're asking them to do. So that would be a good first step to actually getting a good idea of how much things are going to cost.
And on the first one, I forgot to include that obviously preparation of draft and final reports would be part of it, that they would do that. And then I didn't address, we talked a little bit about the qualifications, and I mean, it's going to go to Park Service, so clearly we need a principal investigator or a project manager who meets Secretary of Interior qualifications to do that. They don't have to be paid probably, but someone that meets qualifications has to be responsible for the work, or I don't know if the state or Park Service would accept the survey.
Yeah, so if you go with like U of O, they'd have to be, if you do have grad students do the bulk of the legwork, they still have to be overseen by somebody who meets. Yeah.
Someone who can sign off, who just meets the qualifications. So I didn't get that in here.
Oh, interesting. So there could be some sort of perhaps hybrid solution where there is somebody reviewing and signing off that is paid and accredited.
They don't
So
have to
we
be
could
paid,
have-
but meet the qualifications. The Secretary of Interior has qualifications for different disciplines, and as long as that person is willing to take responsibility and oversees the work, can't just be a blind sign off. It has to be, his professional work. But yes, and then you can have other people doing the work, the bulk of the work, the photographs, the analysis, some of the writing, and all that. So it's kind of, drive through the districts and photo document the existing visible facades, and then look at if contributing properties have changed substantially and are no longer meet the significance. And then I also thought that if there are some properties that have changed, have been altered, probably without permits, some of them could be rehabilitated, probably fairly easily. And so it'd be nice to get some of those recommendations as well. We don't want to just go through a whole list of contributors that are now non-contributing and change them. We want to have a way to bring them back into contributing, if that's possible. Sometimes it's not.
And something I thought about in the time between the last meeting and now, that is a question perhaps for staff or anyone who has this expertise. Given that we are operating with limited resources, is it possible that we can update the survey for a partial district or one and not both of the districts, or do we need to act sort of at one time for both of these districts? Is there anything about that we need to know?
So I would say you probably should do a whole district at a time at the bare minimum, especially if we're doing like a formal update to our district. We can do an informal where it's just for internal record keeping purposes, where we have more information. But if you're putting in this legwork, you might as well like get something good out of it. In talking with our director, the preference would be to do all of our districts at once, which, that'd be the downtown, that'd be the Hackleman, that'd be the Monteith. Probably don't need to touch the airport. That one's recent. It was like 98 that we got that one done. That'd probably be the only one we don't really need to deal with. But the preference would be that we do all of them. We are exploring avenues for money. I can't promise that we've got any at this time, but we're committed to getting this done because it has been an ongoing issue. I do keep our director appraised of that, and he's kind of well aware that, the record keeping, it's like 20 years out from being updated, at least, I want to say. So it is something that has been identified and we're hoping to look at. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. There's no hard and fast. If you're doing something formal, we definitely should do a full district. I don't think the Park Service wants to see half of the Hackleman or half of the Monteith come in. I think that's kind of my feedback.
Gotcha.
So, well, first of all, Cassie, thank you for putting this together.
Sure.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could do all the districts, but in reality, just from a budget, unless the city approves a budget item to do all the districts, which would be great. We may be looking at CLG grants and some other a little bit smaller funding from TLC or something like that, to do one district at a time. So I think we do as much as we can with the money we have. The one thing, and sorry, I haven't really had time to look through the list, but the one thing I see is really important is looking at accessory structures, because that's been a big ongoing issue, and those were not documented in the surveys that were done for the Hackleman and Monteith. and those need to be done. It may, when these were done back in the 80s, it was just a front photo and basic description of the house, and that was pretty much it. It's not up to the standards that you would do now. That was 40 years ago. So, I mean, being able to do accessory structures and photos of all the sides visible from the streets, that would be a good start. And like I said, I need to go through this list, and maybe what we need to do is kind of think of what do we want to gain from this, and kind of prioritize them, because there's a lot of things we can do, like this list right here shows. And like, okay, what's the priority? And then based on the budget, what can we do? What can't we do, kind of a deal.
Yeah, I agree, Cameron. And I too want to thank you, Kathy, for putting this together. It's very thorough. I have read through it actually while sitting here. I had a couple comments. One was, like Cameron, accessory structures and other historic structural elements, if they exist,
Landscapes, like
certain landscape trees or,
landscapes.
gateways or things like that. The other was, there's quite a few just basic errors in the first one. And so just correcting improperly identified structures as to their period and that kind of thing, that I think that's kind of intended in here. The two things that stick out, which are a little tough, I mean, I think this is a great list. The recommending new historic districts or changing the boundaries. So that's kind of one of those third rails that might attract a lot of resistance from the neighbors. I don't know. We did our little survey, and it was, we had sort of wishy-washy on people wanting to be in the district or not. So I'm not sure, although I think it's a great idea. I would love.
I don't know if there are any even are any potential other districts. I don't know. I just put that in there in case.
Oh, yeah, there's
there are.
places where I'd
okay.
like to extend the district for sure. I mean,
Oh, okay. Well, extending the boundaries, yeah, but even new districts with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
okay.
looked at some of those about 15 years ago,
Okay.
and
Yeah, it's-
ran into, I won't say resistance, but apathy, I guess,
Mhm.
for the impetus to form new districts, looking at some of the mid-century modern stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. I just don't know if it helps this list. And then the guidelines, of course, in terms of how you repair in windows. I mean, that's the things we struggle with all the time. And we're going to be working with that in our code as well. So I don't
Yeah.
know that necessarily belongs here.
Right.
But this is a great list.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
David, did you have something?
Just very briefly, we do have a meeting set up with our director around the middle of December, and we're going to take a look to see if there's any economic development money or TLT money, something like that, which would be advantageous for us, because if it's local money, there's not so many strings attached. So I don't know if we're going to be successful or not. But that's one direction that we're taking a look at.
And we can ask council for money. That is an option. I can't guarantee we're going to get anything, but that is always an option. And, it's important. And if people think it is important and come in support of that, that always helps.
Yeah, it's a new council. And if we have all our ducks in a row, and this is a really good start, being able to go to them and explain why we need to do this and where we're deficient and how it would streamline our job and staff's time.
And it would help the applicants too.
Yes.
And the applicant's time, yeah. So I think we can make a good argument to the council, but I think we probably, first thing council is going to ask is, where else have you looked for money? And so we've sort of exhausted all those other things and we have a shortfall. We've raised this much, but we just need a little more. I think council's a lot more open to that.
And I would volunteer that something that struck me, I wanted to touch a little bit on these focus groups that we had. Who else was at a focus group? Kathy? I would like to talk about that tonight, but one thing that struck me in that, sort of a known thing, but so much of what we do and the scope of what we do is misunderstood.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of education to be done. But perhaps one of the first places we could start with that is by meeting with our council and our new council that is incoming. I don't know if there's an opportunity or a chance or even a willingness amongst the commission to maybe touch base with our council all together at some point. I don't know if that's a work session thing, work session for us or work session for them, but
This is actually something that we will need to do with our Article 7 updates, is to have at least one work session with council and the Landmarks Commission together to process those amendments.
I think it would be helpful if they knew us and felt comfortable once they know us, talking to us, asking us questions about.
You
what
want
we
to
are
meet
doing.
and greet?
Yeah, yeah. That's what I'm asking for.
With
I think
snacks,
it's
with
helpful.
snacks.
These focus groups, I think, were very helpful, at least the one I attended. And Kathy, please fill
Yeah,
in.
it was.
But interesting cross-section of people at our at the one I attended, and I think it was very fruitful as far as relationships just with those people there. If only we could meet with everybody, which obviously we can't do. But I would like to start with the council.
Yep. We can look into kind of what the proper procedure, kind of for informally calling it a meet and greet with council would be, and I'll just kind of let you know what that would look like and a potential date. And we'll see who can go.
I would like that. Do we feel that way?
Sure. I have a question about properties that are outside districts.
Yes.
How, is there a process for flagging potentially historic properties in the city? Is there a review process or?
Yes, we do have a designation process. We also have what we call the local historic inventory, so everything that is on our historic districts is on the local historic inventory, but not everything on the local historic inventory is in a district. And this is one of the ones that I always keep an eye on. So basically, people that are on a local historic inventory are still subject to all of the Article 7 standards, but they do not get the benefit of any of the money that we receive from our CLG funding. So they cannot access any of the grants, which I personally believe we kind of need to figure out. Like, either we need to find a source of money they can access, we kind of need to not have them be subject to regulations, is kind of where I'm coming from. Like, we can't give them any carrots for compliance. It's basically all stick. If we were to designate a new one, we'd probably want to go for the Taquina area. That's where the majority of our designated properties are. So that'll be anything west of Elm Street is towards the Taquina area. And that's where the highest concentration is. But we do have them kind of sprinkled throughout the city.
So if if a property is not on the local inventory or any of the designated districts, it's just say 70 years old, 80 years old, it comes in for a building permit for some kind of major alteration or even demolition. Is it flagged for historic? Is it reviewed for historic values? Is it brought forward for designation or?
We can't. The owner would have to consent basically to starting the
Okay.
process.
Okay.
We don't have a formal mechanism in our code to prevent them from doing the changes, from doing the demolition. If an owner wanted to become listed, we do have a process for
Okay.
that, but it's all voluntary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. I just wasn't sure how these
Yeah.
were caught. Okay.
Yeah, we do. I've talked to some folks, but they're usually people across the street who don't want somebody to do X, Y, and Z with the house.
Didn't we do solar panels on a historic home that wasn't particularly in the district, but it was a historic?
Yep, that one was completely outside. It was on Ferry Street over the train tracks, kind of in the industrial section. I think you might have just been on the commission, Kathy. It would have been early last year. That's totally fine. Yeah, it was a really cool one. It was like a Western farmhouse. It was one of the farmhouses for like a dairy that used to be over there by like the Albany industrial area. So yeah, we have a couple. We had one that I processed was on Lawn Ridge, I think, near Taquina School. There's an old one out on Grand Prairie that has a chimney that they call about fairly frequently. They're scattered around, but the highest concentration is in the Taquina area.
Well, if there's no further staff business, I will move on, or excuse
I
me.
actually
Commissioner.
have something, please. Thank you. I would like to see some funds used for notifying people in the historic district who buy into the district at least once a year, go through who has bought in the district, send them notification that if they want to do exterior alterations on their home, these are the regulations, because you see people who don't know what's going on, and that it wouldn't take very much time and effort to put together a list once every quarter or once a year and send them a note saying, hey, this is your responsibility to come to the city if you want to do something. I mean, I hate to see people wasting their money and their time and their effort taking siding off a home and putting brand new siding on and not knowing what's going on.
They've owned that house since 2016.
They know what's going on, but still, a lot of people don't.
Yeah.
Mechanism for determining.
Yeah, you look at the Lynn County, you can go to Lynn County and look at it, look at what sold recently. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
public record.
Lynn County Assessor Public Record, you can just pull properties, but you'd then have to have it against a database of which ones, are historically listed, either local or in the register.
Yeah, because I mean, I can pull account details, but unless I know who previously owned a house, I don't necessarily have the ability to flag when a sales happened. Do they barring asking the tax assessor to run us a report once a year, we don't seem to have any other mechanism of figuring out what's selling.
I feel like there must be something commercially available, because
Title
whenever you
companies have
purchase
the
a
ability
property,
easily to do it.
you start getting little mailers that say, hey, welcome to the neighborhood, we do
Mhm.
gutters. I'm just throwing something out there. There must be some commercial mechanism.
Somehow our GIS map gets updated.
Yep.
It auto-populates, nobody gets flagged. I mean, basically our GIS system connects to the Lynn County database every day and updates, but it does not flag that there is a new property owner. It just one day will change. And so if I'm not looking at every single property every single day, I don't see changes.
But if somebody took a look at it once a month, once a quarter, once a year, and compiled a list and sent it out, I mean, I'm not asking it to be done for free. I'm thinking maybe we can use some grant money as education for our homeowners to do something like that.
I'm gonna dig in on this, because it has only now occurred to me that there's some sort of marketing mechanism. If we could tap into something that's already there that the people are using to market to new homeowners, I'm going to see if I can figure out how that's done.
It seems to me like we could use some of our CLG money to whoever is doing our GIS to enhance the code, so that when one of the properties that is, because it's already designated whether it's in the subject to historic review or not in GIS. So all you'd have to do is add a flag if property owner changed, and then pop up and sends an email or listing or however you want to do it.
Mhm.
It seems like that would be the easy way to do it, because the mechanism's already there. We just need to add the code to do it. It sounds like it's part of GIS.
I mean, there can't be more than 25 a year in
Yes.
the historic district sold. 25, 50 top end.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a huge number.
No.
Yeah, with our GIS, it is an interesting beast, I would say. If anybody has tried InfoHub lately, you will see that many things are different and you have to learn many new things. So that might be a long-term solution, but I think short-term, we still have fires we're putting out. Sometimes our floodplain layers aren't even on our GIS right now. So we're having a rough transition to a new system right now, and we're putting out fires on just basically using it. But I think potentially it's something I can look into, but it is not a short-term fix for this solution.
Alyssa, you had talked about restarting a newsletter, a quarterly newsletter.
Yes.
I wonder if on the first page you could have a standing column that says new homeowners. Here's the rules. Here's who you call. And it goes to the address. You don't have to know the property owner's name, right? It's
Yep.
going to go by address.
And that's what I was hoping to do.
So I'm wondering if we could use CLG money to help put that together. And then that could just be a standing thing like, hey, if you've just moved in, great.
Yep.
Welcome, and
That's
here's
all.
your rules.
Yeah, so we are hoping to get the newsletter out. I am working on a template. I will need some people it doesn't even have to be commissioners to write some articles and stuff to put in there just to make it interesting. I was going to have us do a revolving meet your commissioners. So something like that.
Notes from the chair.
Notes from the chair.
No, that's not how this
And the
works.
vice chair.
Notes from the commission.
Oscar Holt has also offered to provide his services. Apparently, he had some background in the newspaper industry, and he seems very interested in having.
I'm sorry,
if this
I
is
missed the
working
first
or
part.
not.
Who?
Oscar Holt.
Oh,
Yeah. He seemed really excited about the idea of having a newsletter.
Mhm. And I've previously contacted Friends of Historic Albany about doing a column about architecture or pretty much like whatever they'd want to talk about in the newsletter. I think that would be interesting, just more educational information for property owners, things like that. And the nice thing about it is everybody gets it. So even if, we never caught them the first time when they bought the house, like they will slowly not have any more excuses. And we can maybe highlight one section. So like if we do it seasonally, like, one per quarter, well, we kind of only have like 3-4 types of applications we do. We cover, exterior alterations in one. We cover new construction in another. We cover use of substitute materials. And I don't know, we can toss in designating. I mean, the only other thing we do is demolition, but who wants to talk about that?
Expanding the historic district.
Yeah. And so one of the things we could do is we could have like a seasonal spotlight on the type of application, talking about what you would need this application for, what you do not need this application for. And then, we maybe have like meet the staff so that they can, put a face to it so they know I'm not scary.
Completing your application to get through the hearing process in one setting.
Yes.
Sitting.
Yes.
Showing up is the best way to do it.
There you go.
I
Come to the
do-
hearing.
doesn't hurt.
I do want you guys to know that what you saw today was version 2 of the design. The first one was an asymmetrical lean-to garage. So I did save you at least one heartache.
Do you mind if before we move on to the staff updates, I know we have some business from the public that just missed us at the front end of the meeting. Do you mind if I move to that real
Go for
quick,
it.
just in case? I know Lisa's busy.
Thank you very much for fitting me in. And if you need some content for your newsletter, we might be able to provide you some from time to time. And we also do a saturation mailing into some of the areas from time to time. So if there was something we wanted to collaborate on. And to your point, Mr. Robinson, yes, you can buy a list. I used to be in direct mail for lots of years before I worked at the newspaper with Oscar Holt. So anyway, if I could be a resource without dedicating too much time, I'm happy to help you point you in the right direction. But for what you probably are expecting of me this evening, a quick downtown update. We had the twice around Christmas parade and community tree lighting the other evening. It did not rain. It was chilly, but we had a wonderful time. Lots of people attended, and appreciate that, and hope maybe some of you had occasion to be there. If by chance you missed that or just looking for something else fun, the First Friday Sweater Party is this Friday. Every first Friday we have a theme. So sweater party, ugly or not, whatever you like. And there'll be caroling on the trolley. The West Albany kids are delighted to come be on the trolley and sing and with you. It'll just be a hop on, hop off kind of a trolley experience. And then also the annual Christmas parlor tours are set for this Sunday, December 8th. That's put on by the Visitor Association. It's the 45th year. So they'll have a number of private residences as well as the historic homes, and Cumberland Church usually is on there. And our volunteer spotlight was thanking Santa Claus. There are lots of appearances of him downtown, and we appreciate him. There's a lot more events coming up. Wednesday, December 11th, History Bites is on the Cumberland Community Event Center. That might be a good historic one. And the Monteith House has Sleigh Bells Sing, Christmas caroling. Those will be on the Chafin Farms horse-drawn wagons. And they offer that Friday and Saturdays, the 13th, 14th, 20th, and 21st. We will be having a downtown holiday poster hunt for the kiddos now that they're back in school. When they get out of school, they can run around downtown and look at posters during the holiday season through early January. It just gives them a chance to get out of the house. And don't forget the White Spires Christmas Eve program. So that would be December 24th. Traditional Christmas Eve sing-along starting at 7 p.m. And our unwrapped windows feature holiday windows. The winners are on the back here. And that's pretty much all she wrote. So just want to wish you all wonderful holidays. And I have copies of the newsletter for anyone who'd like one afterwards. And it's also available online anytime somebody in the audience might want to pick one up.
Thank you. Thank you for the parade and everything that you do.
And again, if I can be a resource, whether it's pulling off of my direct mail experience, I worked for a direct mail company. They were the #2 mailer in the country, but they did mail the census on behalf of the government. So they're the ones who catch all those new addresses and then can provide those mailing lists off to other people who broker them. So I've got a lot of background in marketing and advertising and direct mail and newsletters. So happy to help.
Very good. I will pick your brain on that. Okay, staff updates.
Hi, curious.
Yeah, you can hold this.
Thank you. All right. So Susan was kind enough to do summaries of the focus group meetings. And so I have those here, so I'm going to hand those out to you. We had our focus group meeting. The first one was November 14th, and the second one was November 21st. And they were both really interesting, and I really like seeing the dynamic between the different property owners of historic properties and how they were talking with each other in the room. And it was pretty cool. I mean, people were even giving their business cards to somebody else and things. So it was kind of an interesting process. So anyway, I'll hand these results to you. And Alyssa, if you have things you want to talk about while I hand these out.
So we did have 2 commissioners go. I would say that my big takeaways from them is people didn't necessarily have general gripes about the code. They might have had 1 or 2 specific things that had gotten them in the past they didn't like. But overall, they mainly thought that we didn't provide enough money to assist with homeowners when they were doing these projects. That was a big thing. They want more resources. And then I got the feeling that we kind of just need to do our own PR. Like we need to go on a PR campaign. We need to kind of build community. Because, everybody tells stories about the Landmarks Commission. Well, the commission does like X, Y, and Z. Nobody can name a commissioner. Nobody knows who we actually are. We're just a faceless body that does, X, Y, and Z and ruins dreams, right? So what I was getting from a lot of people is, number one, new homeowners don't know other homeowners, so they don't know who to hire for work. Longtime homeowners know a lot of things about the district and have a lot of resources, but the new property owners don't necessarily know all of that information. Kind of got the impression that maybe doing like a meet and greet or a mixer would be helpful. There were a lot of long-standing property owners that were just desperate to pass out information, give contractor names, just, help people out who are interested in doing this work. And the other thing too is I just think that people would like to be able to put a name to a face. And I think we just need to do more regular events where we're not kind of in this kind of rule-making authority. I think people would just kind of like to know that we are regular folks who are not out here to ruin hopes and dreams just because we can. And I think that would be really helpful for them to know that, everybody here serves because they care about the districts and they care about historic resources. So we could do things like attending the farmers market and having a meet your landmarks commissioner booth. We can even try to book it for the good weather.
We used to do that. We used to have a table on the Homes Tour.
Yep.
Like at Central School was one of the stops. We had a table there.
Yeah,
so that'd be something to look at again.
Yeah, we can do that. There's the Downtown Association does the first Friday of the month. You know, we probably couldn't do a wine tour table, but you know, something like that. I mean, maybe we can, maybe we can't. I don't know. You know, but it's showing up more regularly. And I think this is something that a lot of other city departments are finding out too, is they just need to be kind of regularly doing outreach and things like that. And I think that would help us a lot with kind of the problems we're seeing.
You know, I
So,
just wanted to,
Alyssa, I'm sorry. One of these notes on here says, need for a clearinghouse of contractors familiar with historic structural requirements and materials availability. Maybe it was just years and years ago, we did have a small list of contractors we would recommend to people. Do we still do that?
We do. Friends of Historic Albany has one that we host on our website. As a government agency, we're not really able to recommend. So Friends of Historic Albany provides that for us, and we just host their list.
Oh, great.
They're, I believe, in the process of updating as people have gone out of business and things like that. But I also have a list from the state of people that do window contracting. Joy Sears gave it to me. I provide that to people who ask. So we do have lists. Part of what I was kind of gathering from the meeting is that our website may have the information, but people don't seem to be able to find it. And so maybe that is something I need to focus on as well.
We have those great design guidelines on there.
Mhm.
It's a lot of good information in them, but unless you know to search design guidelines, those are hard to find.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to make that more easily accessible because it's a great resource.
Yep. So we are actually revamping the entire planning website for the city of Albany. And then once that part of the project is done, I was going to dig into the historic one. So, because I know that we have all this information there and people just do not seem to be able to find it, which leads me to believe it is a website problem, not a people looking problem.
well, and you know, sometimes even when it's not necessarily a website problem, if it's not working, then it's not working.
Yep. You got to fix it.
Yeah, you know, I often think about those parking spaces by the post office. And on paper, I have no idea why those are so hard to understand, but you need only go check your PO box to see the confusion that lasts even years later. So,
Yep. So I think that was my main takeaway. My main takeaway is honestly, people don't necessarily have real gripes about our code. I mean, everybody's got like a pet section they hate, right? But it's more about kind of the other intrinsic things that we do that are part of this. It's not necessarily the regulatory stuff. It's kind of everything. And then it just culminates on the regulatory stuff. It's just like ruining it.
and if I could say, a couple of my big takeaways were the things that we basically already know and that we talk about a lot, which is education and understanding about what we do. There was a fellow there who I would call him an industry guy. He works for a construction company that does work in and outside of the district. And you would think if anyone had an understanding, it would be somebody like that. He is an estimator and a project supervisor, so he is involved in these projects, presumably most of the projects that the company he works for undertakes. And he had some questions that were sort of born out of the same fear of what we do and how we do it, that we were able to quickly assuage, I think. You know, he said, well, you know, I bought this house X number of years ago, but these windows are not, I've got vinyl windows and aluminum windows. Is somebody going to come after me? No, it's all right. No one's coming after you if you're not doing something. And on the other side of that, there was even a homeowner in our focus group who has a historic home and she was very passionate about older homes. And she is routinely approached by other people, whether they are neighbors or people outside of the district, who go, oh, how are you getting along being in the historic district? Are you having a lot of trouble with the people on the commission? Are they giving you trouble? And she's out there saying, no, it's easy. It's not a problem. So it's back to that outreach and education.
Mm-hmm. Well, the city has a wonderful social media person who does absolutely great postings on Instagram about all kinds of things. I'm tempted to ask him to do one to try to teach people how to drive in roundabouts because everybody here stops. How? Anyway, beyond that, we could have historic landmarks question of the month or question of the week, or, like we can talk on Instagram, do something, something to just get out there. But, there's nobody at these meetings. I mean, that's really where they would see what the commission does and kind of see us as people and interested and concerned and, supportive and lovely and all of that. So how do we get people to come to the meetings? Have them during the day? No.
No. No, when I heard that History Bites thing, this is just a quick pet peeve. I can't make any of them because they are, except for one that was done a few years ago at Deluxe Brewing in an evening. I often see History Bites and I want to go, but I'm at work. And I'm at work 15 miles away. I can't break away and take a long lunch and then explain to my boss, well, they're talking about the embalming processes around the Civil War, so I had to go.
I mean,
If I can add something though to this discussion, the challenge that we have is that you as Landmarks Commission members are considering quasi-judicial cases that come to you. And this has been a real source of tension, I think, with some members, especially some in the past, where they want to give advice and suggest to the applicant, well, if you do it like this will look better, or this will be more in keeping with the historic integrity. But at the same time, you almost have to have a wall in front of you because you are a quasi-judicial body. It's a land use review, and it just puts people in a really awkward position. So, maybe the time to socialize with people or to try to mingle more with the people that own the historic properties would be mixers or the farmer's market or something outside of this room. That could be a really big difference right there. But once they come to apply and they come before you, you're the board, and you can't give advice at that point.
Well, ideally, we'd be able to get those people connected with the private resources, like contractors that work in that area, designers that understand that, so that when, I know there's some expense involved there, but it sure takes the load off of us when we get a good applicant that comes in that has connected up with a good resource. And so the fact that FOHA is doing that, I mean, does that database get used a lot, or do you know?
It reminds me of what Independence is doing, and I'm sure you guys sit over there and go, how much money are they trying to spend imaginarily? I know we keep heaping on things we should do, but Independence, just a quick refresher, they have someone who goes out when something comes to the planning department, or the building department. We're going to get rid of these windows and we're going to do this. Would you like to talk with this fellow? And then he will meet at no cost at cost to the city. But he will meet with the applicants or the potential applicants on site and discuss with them what they actually have and different ways that they could proceed. And he is able to advise them on what possible alternatives they have to just getting rid of something or doing something that doesn't fall within.
Albany actually did that through CARA, through the historic downtown district. When anyone would come with a building in the downtown district and look for CARA funds, they were connected with an architect that was not really contracted by CARA and paid. And he'd come down from Portland. He was a good guy and would come down to spend a day with people, walk through their building, give them a lowdown on what they had. And often he would get hired to do facade restorations and things like that. I ended up kind of taking over for him as he retired. But CARA paid that because it made sense. But when it never really got applied to the residential districts, there was never anyone in that capacity that could come out and quickly survey a project and point people in the right direction.
It's something to think about. And, in my head, I can think of a small number, but a number of people who might fit that sort of capacity. So something maybe to keep on that wish list is a possibility.
It would sure be a nice incentive to be able to provide some design guidance to homeowners that really are struggling and don't want to spend thousands of dollars to hire someone. And I mean, I clearly know this is not San Diego. In San Diego, though, we had a design subcommittee of the Landmarks Commission,
Interesting.
and staff would take projects for determination of consistency with the standards. Our regulations were exactly the standards. So there was that review. And if between staff at that meeting and the landmarks commissioners at the meeting, if they all agreed it was consistent with the standards, then they didn't come to the board, the full board, for a hearing. It was then consistent under the code and could go forward. And I know that's not the same and the same structure and all that, and I'm not trying to make it that way. I really think if we could give some kind of early assistance, early design support, something to homeowners that want it, I think it would be really beneficial. And it would be an incentive to them to come forward. The better to get permission, what's that?
Forgiveness.
Right, we need to make it better, we need to make it easier to get permission. And I wanted to ask about building permit fees. Is there a way to double the fee if they have done the work without a permit and reduce the fee if they come in before they do the work? I mean, is there a way to do something along those lines as well as an incentive? Carrot and stick, maybe that's not right, but something, But wasn't it nice tonight that the work wasn't already done that garage wasn't already built?
Sure. Yeah. That's the silver lining there.
Exactly.
I would say that's an excellent point. It's not just the assistance, although the assistance is 90% of it, but 10% of it is the fact that when these applicants come before, if we had somebody on contract that could talk with them and start the conversation without them incurring the cost of an architect or a designer, I would feel like that would be a tremendous olive branch to these potential applicants, and let them know, like, hey, we're not against you. We're with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly something I've been thinking of, both the window consultant specifically and just a generic somebody who can come and help with projects would also be really helpful, because we do ask people for this information, and I don't know, I think it's every time I ask them for something, their mind goes blank and they feel like they're getting yelled at by a teacher, so they can't do it sometimes. I try. I promise. The design you got today was the second version. I did save you from an asymmetric lean-to garage.
I don't doubt it.
I fought the good fight. So I think it would be helpful because people have been struggling. They do seem to struggle. I get the impression people are not hiring the contractors to do these designs. They're just doing it on their own. I think they just need help. And I think it would be helpful to do that. One thing that I think is achievable in our time frame that we have for CLG funds, which is up in May, is potentially a mixer. We can also invite industry professional people that we see, and have them come so people can at least be in a room with contractors and talk to them. Or they could just be in the room for free food, honestly.
That's an interesting point. If we were to include in that mix, as you just said, past applicants, it would be interesting to hear some input from them.
But yeah, we can have past applicants. We can just basically invite anybody in the district. We can also reach out and have people that do work in the district also invited. And if they choose to show up, we're not endorsing their business because we cannot endorse business. But if they choose to hire that person after they meet them at the mixer, that is their business. Well, and they can at least know people that do work in these districts.
With a First Friday, put that together with a First Friday, do a mixer, then you're inviting the downtown community as well. I think that would work well for a mixer.
Yeah. So yeah, we can put something together. It would just have to be before May 16th, I want to say, is kind of our spend your money deadline. I do not have the capacity to pull off anything this month or next month.
Early spring would be good, so we can kind of enjoy the weather too.
Yeah, maybe aim for like April. Gears you up for May, Historic Preservation Month.
Exactly.
And we have a budget. I mean, we can pay for food. People love free food. That's what I think we're missing.
All planners, step forward, please.
Historic research materials.
Yes. So back a while ago, the state was like, hello, would you like to receive free money for a disaster resiliency plan that the U of O PRE folks will put together for you? You just have to tell us who your partners are. And we were like, great, we'll do that. And now they are finally starting that project. And so one of the questions is, and this is also a build off of people being like, I don't know where to find anything, is basically where are historic materials located? We have apparently a corner at the Carnegie Library that I just found out about and took a look at. Kind of forgot it was there. Nobody had mentioned it when I hired on, so cracked that open. We have all of our surveys there and they're like beautiful. In fact, some of them that I'm missing are in there. So we have a ton of information in the Carnegie Library, which is no longer regularly open, but is the closest library to most of our historic folks. There's stuff in the Albany Regional Museum, but are there other resources we don't know about, other partners that we routinely partner with? And so this is kind of a question of like, what do I not know that we have around town?
Looks like we're not going to be much help.
Oh no. So maybe if people could think, are there like repositories of information? We have Sanborn maps at the library. Are there Sanborn maps somewhere else? We have the old phone directories at the library. Are they somewhere else? You know, there's a thing to be said about redundancy. You don't want the last version of anything to be somewhere, if you can help it at least. So yeah, like if people want to research, where do they go?
Yeah, I guess let's think about that. I don't have any answers for you right now. I don't know if anyone has any answers right now either.
So when I did the talk on how to research the history of your house last May, it was in Corvallis, but it covered Albany area as well. As far as physical locations, I mean, it's pretty much the library and the regional museum. But online, there's a lot of different resources for different things. I mean, the city of Albany has city directories, a lot of them online. But, you know, a lot of the Sanborn maps are also online. Historic photographs, besides the Albany Regional Museum, there's a whole list on there. And I'll probably do that talk again in May as well, and this time do it in Albany instead of Corvallis. So there's a lot of stuff online, but when it comes to physically, locally here, I'm mostly aware of just the two already mentioned.
Yeah, and the library, Albany Public Library's website is really nice too. They have the Bob Potts photos are on there. There's, you know, the Democrat Herald goes way back to, I don't know, 100 years or so. I mean, so there's a lot of really good, interesting information available electronically through that website.
Very good. Well, anything further? That having not been said, our next meeting date is January 15th, 2025. Be there or be square. Wait, I'm getting some pushback. I'm getting a look.
Just remembered I wanted to ask why it was the 15th is because the holiday?
Yes, the first Wednesday of 2025 is the 1st of January. And then I think the next Wednesday after that was a city council meeting. So we are doing the 3rd.
All right, so re-emphasize for all those hundreds of people online listening. January 15th, 2025, I will adjourn this meeting at 7:24.